In 1946, World War II had just ended, and the world was a different place than it was before the war. So was the National Football League and the New York Giants. We'll discuss the 1946 season and all the excitement that surrounded it, and a very strange ending to the National Football League's championship game coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another edition of the New York Giants 100 celebration. We are 30-some different episodes into our celebration here of the New York Giants, as they have just started their 2024 season this weekend. And boy, what an exciting season it is going to be. We're covering all the history of the first 100 years. And, maybe the Giants will make some new history this year as well. But 1946 was a pivotal season of change in the NFL and the New York Giants. Normalcy was returning across the country as soldiers returned home from World War II, and they returned with a new influx of talent from being trained at military camps throughout the world who used football as one of their training procedures. So now you had an influx of talented players, and a competitive football league came about. The AAFC started in 1946 that sort of pulled from the NFL's players and from those World War II players coming home. So a lot of competition going on, a lot more professional teams being played, and a lot of experienced players coming into the fold. Now, the NFL also faced personnel changes as players like Green Bay's quarterback Arnie Erber, who had thrown so magnificently to many receivers, including Don Hutson, and led Green Bay to some outstanding seasons and some championships. And the Giants, Mr. Giant himself, Mel Hein, retired from the game and hung up his cleats to go into some coaching and stuff. So New York needed itself to reestablish its identity. So they acquired a new signal caller from the former Washington Redskins player in Frank Filchock, who had 6 seasons of NFL experience under his belt. And the Giants signed him to a 3-year, $35,000 inking. And it was the first multi-year contract in New York Giants history. And it followed by a growing trend on the NFL landscape for free agency acquisitions that carry on to this day. Now, the Giants had success with their new quarterback. They even ironically outlasted Washington, the team that Filchock came from, in the Eastern Conference race by defeating the Redskins in the season finale of the regular season scheduled games to earn a spot in the NFL championship game against a longtime rival, the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, Filchock's legacy as a viable hero of the Giants ended there for both player and the team as a story unfolded that tainted the 1946 season and a couple of players' careers as well. Let's go to the story. NFL Commissioner Burt Bell was woken from his slumber a couple evenings before the title game as New York City Mayor William O'Dwyer and Police Commissioner Arthur Wallander asked for Bell and the Giants owner Tim Mara, Jack Mara, and Wellington Mara to appear in the mayor's office to discuss a serious matter that involved a couple of New York's players. This is 2 days before the championship game, mind you. Now, Filchock, a second-year fullback, Merle Heipes, were questioned in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. to be exact, in suspicion of a possible involvement of a point-shaving conspiracy in the upcoming NFL championship game. The NFL commissioner swiftly suspended Heipes from the game and informed Filchock and the Giants that the NFL would investigate further to find out what his fate, but Filchock could play in the championship game that Sunday. The evidence obtained was recorded conversations from a wiretap of a mobster's phone, a 28-year-old gambler named Alvin J. Paris. And he had offered Heipes and Filchock money to throw the game. Now, Heipes and Filchock were not in the recordings, but it was a recording of Paris talking to another individual of the underworld that he had offered those monies and given monies to those players, and especially in Hapes. Now, historian Larry Schmidt describes the pregame investigation on the eve of the game with, quote, Filchock denied any involvement, while Merle Hapes admitted to being offered $2,500, the profits of a $1,000 bet that Chicago would cover the 10-point spread, and an off-season job that he would earn him another $15,000, end quote. That's from Larry Schmitz on Big Blue Interactive on an article he wrote a few years ago on the Giants-Redskins rivalry that they had early on in the first few years of that. Now, Burt Bell's son came on our program in 2021, Upton Bell, to tell us about his famous father and what the incident led to.
What he did is he not only saved the NFL, but he set the future, but he had a mind that was, Darren, so far in advance of everybody else that
Wow.
he saw television as a savior of pro football. But when you look at it, the NFL draft, the waiver wire is still around today. Ex-FBI men that he put in each city when he stopped the 1946 championship game, and the thought that it was fixed. And Cole went to New York and sat down with Frank Hogan, the district attorney, the night before the game, and decided to suspend one player and the other one he let play. But right after that, he hired ex-FBI men in every city to report bribes and stuff with players or gamblers, and really put a stop to a situation that could have killed pro football. So he put in the waiver wire and demanded every team back in 1946 turn in who was injured, who wasn't, every week by Thursday. That's still there. We're talking 1946.
We thank Upton Bell for that piece a couple years ago. Now, Filchock, though under suspicion, was a marked man. The crowd at the Polo Grounds booed him profusely as he took the field, and the air of excitement about playing for a title was somewhat skewed, and the crowd subdued a little bit due to the nefarious circumstances of the Big Apple home crowd and their quarterback and what was their former fullback. In the game, Filchock's play was affected by the investigation allegations and possibly the suspected bribe itself. Though the Giants quarterback threw 2 touchdown strikes in the contest, his 6 interceptions, including an early pick 6 by Bears DB Frank Manznicki, led to a Chicago 24-14 victory. And isn't that ominous that it was a 10-point victory? In later testimony by Filchock and others, the Giants quarterback finally admitted involvement, and he and Hapes received lifetime bans from participating any further in the NFL as a player or coach going forward. And Paris, the gambler himself, went to jail for his involvement. Interestingly, in a just irony, the 10-point spread laid out by the gamblers before kickoff ended in a push. Hapes stopped playing football altogether, while Filchock tried to get another roster spot in that competitive AAFC we told you about earlier, but he was rejected by that league. However, he did land in the CFL for a few years with some teams up north in Canada. Now, the Giants reeled over this loss of their essential roster members and the tainting of their reputation for the next 3 seasons. They couldn't really bounce back from that for another 4 years, not managing a winning season again until 1950, and we'll talk about that in a later episode. You can check out more of this story on the Giants and this circumstance in part of the article that Larry Schmidt wrote on Big Blue Interactive, and we've got a link for you in the show notes and on Pigskin Dispatch in this particular episode. So we really thank you for joining us for this New York Giants 100. It's a great history. We learned a lot about the game. Today, a little bit of a scandal into it. We're going to have some more scandals coming up in Giants history as we go along, as well as some championship years and some great all-around players that we get to do the bios on. So this is really a lot of fun to talk about. Hope you're enjoying it. And if you haven't caught them, go to Pigskin Dispatch right now and check out our NYG 100 series. You'll have a link to it in the show notes of this podcast and YouTube channel. And You can find it on pigskindispatch.com. Till next time, everybody, have a great gridiron day. That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.